Dave Birkett here, Radio Row Super Bowl 60, along with Dan Orlovsky. You recognize this face, longtime backup quarterback for the Lions, and now media star with ESPN, I think is probably fair to say. I told you.
Media employee.
Media employee. I told you, I remember talking to you at Radio Row 6 or 8 years ago when you were first getting into this side of the business.
Sure.
And I said, this is kind of like a dream. Like, I'm sure, like, playing quarterback in the NFL was a dream when you were young, and now doing this. And you said, Jerry Rice gave you a pinch me moment.
Yeah, I have them all the time where I'm just like, this is life and whatnot. And yesterday before the Pro Bowl games, Jerry Rice, I'm at the sideline, comes over to me. He's like, "What's up, man? What's going on? Good to see you. Like, you do a great job." And I'm like, Jerry Rice knows I'm a human. Like, he knows that I'm alive and in my name and whatnot. So, yeah, that was one of those moments where I'm like, if you had told me 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago that Jerry Rice would come over, say hi to me, let alone say nice things, I would be like, no shot. So, yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, you do a great job. I know Lions fans appreciate your honesty, your candor, your breaking downs of the games. And let's jump into the Lions real quick. The disappointing season, obviously. It wasn't terrible, but they go 9-8. Just in your estimation, what went wrong for them this year?
Well, their strength became a weakness. The offensive line was a unit that was the dominant piece in the NFL for 2 or 3 years. And that's what allowed kind of the character and the identity of certainly the offense and the team to get built. This was a wildly aggressive offense. This was an offense that was constantly gassed down. This was an offense that would all the time go forward on 3rd and 6, run the football, then 4th down, go for it, because they could dominate at the line of scrimmage. And so that led to so many different tentacles attached to it that bred success. The offensive line became a weakness. They didn't protect nearly as much and as well as they did in the past. They didn't dominate the game and control the game from that vantage point. And so then, it's when the offensive line dominates, everybody else, not just the quarterback, everybody else, his job is easier, and they play to a level that is above who they actually are. When the offensive line is a weakness, everybody else's job is harder, and they play to a level lower than they actually are, not just the quarterback. And so there's that would probably be the number one starting point. Obviously, losing Ben was a massive schematical loss.
Does it start then with getting that offensive line right, and all of a sudden this offense, this team is one of the best in the NFL again next year?
It always starts with that offensive line, yes. And then the play caller. If you have one, you got a chance. If you have both, you should dominate.
You're really good.
You should control games. You should win games 48-14 type stuff. And so, getting that offensive line back to the dominant brand that it was and on a consistent basis is the starting point. And then you got to have that scheme that always gives you an advantage. That's what they had under Ben.
All right, so let's talk about the scheme, the new offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing. I know you study a lot of film.
I like Drew.
Do you? Okay, so what have you seen from his offense that might fit with Dan, might be what the Lions need?
So in Arizona, I really liked Petzing's run game stuff. I thought Drew Petzing's, the variance of their run game and the versatility of their run game was really good. Different run styles. I think he pulls people in their run game often. At least that's what he did in Arizona. I think the second thing is the utilization of the tight ends. Loves the tight ends. Whenever you put tight ends on the field, I always think you're creating matchup advantages both in the run and the pass game. 2-3 guys on the field in that role at a different perspective. The play action game, it often is married to what the run looks like. You guys in Detroit remember, I wouldn't say Detroit had a play action pass game. I'd always say it has a run action pass game because it always looked the same. And so that's what Drew likes. So those are the good. I want to be candid and honest, though. I do think that there were parts in their pass game that lacked in Arizona. The pass game concepts. I do think that it's important for somebody in Detroit in the building to be really good with, hey, what pass game concepts do we like in the drop back game and in the play action game? The concepts rather than just the run action. You want concepts that are married to that at a high level, and that would be something that I would like to see advanced and developed from his time in Arizona.
I'm glad you mentioned the tight ends. I talked to Trey McBride at the Pro Bowl the other day, and he said he texted Sam Laporta right after Drew got hired, and he said, "You're going to eat." He said, "This is built for you." But that pass game, maybe that's where Mike Kafka comes in. Obviously, former quarterback, had worked in Kansas City, so I imagine he's got some creativity to him as well.
Yeah, and having a quarterback with that stuff is a big deal. It's quarterbacks just see things differently from a pass game perspective. They just have a different understanding of what defenses are doing, how to try to attack them, how you can marry different things. And so, I think Kafka, and also Kafka's different experiences himself of different offenses, different quarterbacks, different systems is a big advantage.
One more thing on the Lions offense. David Montgomery was a little unhappy with his role. Brad Holmes sort of admitted after the season they may entertain some trade offers. If David leaves, is Jahmyr Gibbs ready for that big workload? He had a big workload this year, but to be that horse every down type guy, what would you do with the Lions running game if you had to trade David Montgomery?
You choose to keep them both, right? But if you move from David and you get the proper value from him, the answer is yes. Jahmyr is so special. He's a stud. I mean, and it's one of those situations where it's like, I can get where people are going, are we really taking Jahmyr off the field? And though that's why you get into that, all right, is David getting the proper touches? Jahmyr's he's a special talent. Now, I think Detroit is still one of those teams that, and I say this all the time, like, they're not planning on playing 18 games. They want to play 21. And so that's a big burden to ask on a back, right? And it's not just for 26. You want Jahmyr to be a focal point for 5+ years. And so that's something that you got to be conscious of is like the wear and tear, not over the course of just that season, but also the 4 or 5 year stretch of a career.
Absolutely, and they're going to pay him this year, so that factors into it. They want him around. One last offensive coordinator question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this because you were on the McAfee show. They asked you about that. Are you serious? Do you have an interest in coaching at some point in time?
Well, that one took that was you took my words out of context thing because would you like being the coordinator of the yeah, of course I would. Right. I think anybody would because they're so good and so talented. And I got texts like, "Have you had talks with Dan?" No.
Yeah. And I didn't mean like yes.
No.
Coach
yes. Still, coaching's still something I think about a lot. Will I do it? I don't know. My boys are 14. My daughter's 10. I freaking love being around them and watching them play sports, so I'm not ready to give that up yet.
I feel that. That's why I leave here on Fridays now, get home and see them.
Good.
So, all right, let's a couple last minutes here with Dan Orlovsky, ESPN personality, former Lions quarterback on Radio Row. I want to ask about Matthew Stafford. He was my vote for MVP this year. MVP voting comes out tomorrow. What do you think that means as sort of the cherry on top of his career? You know him well. If he wins that award, lock of a Hall of Famer, maybe he is already, but
I think he's a lock, yeah.
Okay. Maybe, who knows now with Bill Belichick and everything that's gone on with that, but I'm sure, this would be.
I think it's the obvious. Matthew would have by far preferred to be playing Sunday and, having the chance to win a second one, but I do think that winning MVP is going to be a very big deal to him because while he spent most of his career in the football world having people know how good he was, the outside of the football world still didn't think he was what he is because of the lack of team success.
Yep.
And I do think the MVP is going to be one of those moments, if he wins, that he's going to be able to sit back and be like, all right, I can appreciate now that I am finally being appreciated by people outside of the football world of how good he is. I mean, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say he's one of the most talented throwers of the football to ever play in the league.
I've always said that, Dan, that obviously he was supremely talented, and I don't think I had a full appreciation of how good he was until he came back. And watching him in the playoff game against the Lions a couple years ago and watching what he did with the Rams, you sort of realize sometimes you're too close to things, and you say, wow, he really can be a special player.
He's a special player. He's a special guy, right? Like, you don't play this long and at this level and different teams, and unless you are wired in a special way as a teammate and a dude. And I think a lot of people have now just had the opportunity to remove any type of emotion attachment and be like, nah, he's a special player, man.
Yeah. All right, let's end it on this. We're here for the Super Bowl, right? Sam Darnold, he got picked on a lot early in his career, even last year. Drake May, probably the runner-up for MVP. As much as people talk about defenses in the running games, this is still a quarterback league, I think. So.
Oh God.
Yeah.
What
do you think about this matchup? Sunday.
Seattle and the Rams are the two best teams in football to me this year. I think Seattle should be the favorite. Can New England's defense keep them in it is the big question. This is the best offense New England's going to have played against in the playoffs. Seattle's offense is a very good one. Can they keep them in it? And if they can, does then Drake, who has not been great, good defenses he's played against, can Drake be situationally very good and just find a way to make a play or two in the fourth quarter? I think that's going to be a huge challenge. But if New England's defense can keep him in it, I think they can stay in the game.
Yeah, and Drake May is, even though he hasn't played his best, running the football, he's still been a weapon of late.
Big time in the red zone.
They've still done some really good. Can you make a prediction? I don't know if you're not on the broadcast.
I am on the broadcast for international, so
yeah, international.
I don't know.
There you go, yeah.
But like I said, I think Seattle should be favored.
All right, let's leave it there. You know Dan Orlovsky from his days with the Lions. You see him on TV all the time with ESPN. Dan, I appreciate you joining me here. Radio Row, Super Bowl 60, Freep.com.